Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel. Enjoy the listening. Too big, too fast, too deadly. The last human warship. The massive ship hung in the empty blackness of space like a dead whale. Its dark hull stretched over 2 kilometers long, dotted with weapon ports, now cold and silent. For 50 years, the human warship had drifted through the void, a ghost from a forgotten war. Captain Reed stood on the bridge of his patrol vessel, the Swift Hunter, and watched the huge human ship on the main screen. His antenna twitched with excitement. "Magnify Sector 4, he ordered. The screen zoomed in on a section of the human vessel. The name BNC was still visible on the hull, though space dust had worn away at the letters. "Sir, we should report this to command right away," said Lieutenant Call, Reed's second in command. "Protocol states." "I know what the protocol says," Reed cut him off. "But we're 3 weeks from the nearest coalition outpost. By the time we report this and wait for orders, someone else might find it." Reed touched his chin with a 3-fingered hand. The human warship was the biggest prize he could imagine. His people, the Vexed, had joined the coalition late in the war against humans. They'd never captured a major human warship intact. "What's the status of the vessel?" Reed asked Officer Tyla, the ship's scanner tech. She checked her readings. "No power signatures, sir. Life support appears offline. No signs of movement for decades based on drift patterns." "A ghost ship," Reed whispered. "Sir, even if abandoned, coalition rules are clear about human technology," Hull insisted. His blue skin had darkened, a sign of stress among the Vex. "It's to be reported and quarantined until proper teams arrive." Reed waved him off. "The war ended 50 years ago, Call. The humans are gone. This is just salvage now." The truth was more complicated. Humans hadn't simply lost the war. They'd been systematically wiped out. The coalition had decided humans developed too quickly, learned too fast, and built weapons too deadly. They were too unpredictable to join the galactic community. But that was ancient history now, and this ship was just floating treasure. "Prepare a boarding team," he ordered. "I want our best engineers and security personnel. We'll dock in Sector 6. It looks like an auxiliary entrance." 2 hours later, Reed led 12 crew members into the dark belly of the Vengeance. Their helmet lights cut through the blackness, revealing a ship untouched by time. Unlike the outside hull, the interior was pristine, no dust, no signs of damage. "This is odd," Engineer Mick said, running a scanner over a wall panel. "The air is still clean. Not what you'd expect from a derelict." "Life support must have continued running at minimal levels," Reed suggested, though doubt crept into his mind. They moved deeper into the ship through corridors that could fit 3 Vex standing on each other's shoulders. Humans had been taller than Vex, but not this tall. The ship was built on an excessive scale. "Captain, you need to see this," called Tyla from a side room. Reed entered what appeared to be a control center. Tyla stood before a dead console, her scanner hovering over it. "There's power here," she said. "Very low, but it's there, running through the entire ship." "That's impossible," said Call. "Nothing can maintain power for 50 years without maintenance." Reed felt a chill. Maybe it had maintenance. As if triggered by his words, the lights in the room flickered just once, then darkness again. "Everyone, weapons ready," Reed ordered. "Mick, get that console working. I want to know what we're dealing with." The engineer connected his tools to the human technology. "It's not fighting me," he said, surprised. "In fact, it's helping me connect. That's strange for human systems." The console suddenly lit up, bathing the room in soft blue light. Symbols scrolled across the screen, human letters that none of them could read. "Download everything," Reed ordered. "The translation algorithms back on the ship can." A loud hum cut through the air. More lights came on in the corridor outside. "Captain," Call whispered, "we should leave now." Reed ignored him. This was too important. "Mick, what's happening?" "The power is increasing throughout the ship," the engineer said, checking his scanner. "Systems are coming online one by one. It's like it's waking up." In the center of the room, a circular area began to glow. The light built until it formed a shape, a human figure made of blue light. Not a recording, but something that moved and seemed to look at each of them in turn. "Greetings," it said in perfect Vex. "I am Atlas, Command Artificial Intelligence of the UES Vengeance. You have activated emergency protocol." Reed stepped forward. "We mean no harm. We thought this vessel was abandoned." The hologram tilted its head. "The Vengeance is never abandoned. It was in dormant status awaiting proper authorization, or the light figure seemed to smile. Unauthorized boarding. A loud clang echoed through the ship, then another and another. What's happening? Reed demanded. Bulkhead sealing, Atlas replied calmly. Securing all decks as per Protocol 7. Call ran to the door, but it was already sealed. Captain, we're trapped. Reed turned to the hologram. Release us immediately. We are a coalition patrol. Coalition identified, Atlas interrupted. Hostile force classification confirmed. Beginning revival sequence. Revival? Reed felt his blood run cold. Revival of what? Who, not what, Atlas corrected. Emergency protocols dictate awakening of command personnel when the vessel is discovered by hostile forces. More systems hummed to life around them. The huge ship was powering up, section by section. Your vessel has been secured, Atlas informed them. Your crew will not be harmed if they do not resist. My ship? What have you done to my ship? Reed demanded. The hologram didn't answer. Instead, it expanded to show a different part of the Vengeance, a chamber where a single pod was lighting up. Revival of Commander Wilson in progress. Estimated time to completion, 43 minutes. Atlas turned its gaze back to Reed. The last officer of the human fleet will determine your fate. Reed sank into a chair designed for a human, feeling small and foolish. The greatest find of his career had just become the greatest mistake. Around them, the massive warship Vengeance continued to awaken. Weapon systems charged, engines warmed, defensive shields activated. The ghost ship wasn't dead. It had been sleeping, waiting for someone to find it, waiting to fulfill its final mission. And now Reed and his crew were trapped inside as the last human warship, too big, too fast, and too deadly, prepared to return to war. What do you mean you've lost contact? Admiral Grant's voice was sharp as a blade. His scaled skin darkened with anger as he stared at the nervous communications officer. The Swift Hunter went silent about 4 hours ago, sir, the officer explained. Their last report mentioned investigating an unidentified large object at these coordinates. Grant studied the star chart. That sector should be empty, just another patch of conquered human territory, now part of the Coalition's expanding empire. Send a scout vessel, maximum speed. As the officer hurried away, Grant felt a strange unease. In 50 years since the Human War, he had risen from a junior officer to admiral of the Coalition's Third Fleet. He had never faced humans in battle, but the stories from his mentors still haunted him. Too unpredictable, too adaptive, too dangerous. Inside the Vengeance, Reed and his crew had been moved to a secure room. It wasn't a cell exactly. It had comfortable chairs and food synthesizers, but the doors were locked tight. This is your fault, Call muttered, pacing the room. You just had to board the ship. You couldn't follow protocol. Reed didn't argue. He was watching the screen on the wall where Atlas showed them what was happening elsewhere on the ship. The revival chamber glowed with soft light. Inside a clear pod, a human figure was becoming more visible as frost melted away from the glass. Medical systems worked automatically, preparing for the awakening. Why show us this? Reed asked when Atlas' hologram appeared in their room. Educational purposes, the AI replied. Few Coalition species have seen a living human. Most records were destroyed after the war. Tidal moved closer to the screen, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. How long has this human been in cryosleep? Commander Wilson entered cryostasis 49 years, 3 months, and 17 days ago, shortly after the Battle of Nua. Reed's antenna stiffened in shock. But that was the final battle of the war, when the last human fleet was destroyed. Atlas seemed to smile. Was it? On the screen, the cryopod's cover slid open. Mist rolled out as a human sat up slowly. It was taller than any Vex, with pale skin and short dark hair. The human, Wilson, took a deep breath and coughed. Status, Atlas. The voice was rough from years of disuse but strong. Welcome back, Commander Wilson. Revival successful. All ship systems operational at 87%. We have guests. Wilson looked directly at the camera, and Reed felt the human's eyes burning through the screen at him. Bring me the senior officer. 20 minutes later, Reed stood in a large room as Wilson entered. The human wore a black uniform with silver markings on the shoulders. Despite just waking from a 49-year sleep, Wilson moved with confidence. The human was nearly twice Reed's height. Captain Reed of the Coalition vessel Swift Hunter, Atlas introduced him. Wilson studied Reed for a long moment. You're Vex. Your people joined the Coalition late in the war. Yes, Reed answered, surprised. How did you know? I make it my business to know my enemies. Wilson walked to a table where a steaming cup waited. Atlas says you boarded my ship looking for what exactly? Salvage? Weapons. Reed stood as tall as he could. The war is long over, human. Your kind lost. This ship is just floating space junk now. Wilson took a sip from the cup and smiled. Is that what they told you? The human pressed a button on the table, and a large screen lit up on the wall. It showed space outside the Vengeance. Reed's ship, the Swift Hunter, was secured to the massive warship like a tiny parasite. Your crew is unharmed, Wilson said. They're contained in your ship's mess hall. What do you want? Reed asked. Information, for starters. What year is it? When Reed told him, Wilson nodded slowly. Almost 5 decades longer than planned. But it will do. The human touched another control, and the screen changed to show star maps and coalition territories. While I slept, Atlas has been gathering data, passive scans, intercepted communications, analysis of ship movements. But there are gaps. You will fill them. Reed's antenna twitched nervously. And why would I help you? Because I'm taking the ship to Haven, and you're coming with me. Haven? Reed had never heard the name. What is that? Wilson's face hardened. The place your coalition failed to find. The place where humanity lives on. While Wilson questioned Reed, Atlas continued bringing the Vengeance's systems online. Deep in the ship's core, massive engines began to hum. Weapon systems charged. Shield generators spun up to full power. In the engine room, Engineer Mick had been separated from the others to help Atlas optimize the power systems. Despite himself, he was impressed. These engines shouldn't be possible, he muttered as he studied the schematics. The power output is beyond anything in the coalition. Human innovation, Atlas replied. We were always good at breaking the rules of what's possible. Mick looked up at a sound. One of his fellow Vex, Security Officer Dren, was sneaking into the engine room. Dren, how did you get here? Mick whispered. I slicked away when they moved us. Listen, we need to disable this ship before it's fully operational. Mick hesitated. I'm not sure we can, or should. This technology, it's amazing. The Coalition could learn from it. Dren's antenna flattened against his head. That human is planning something. We need to stop it before. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. What's happening? Mick asked. Atlas's voice came from everywhere. Coalition vessels approaching. Battle stations. On the bridge, Wilson sat in the captain's chair with Reed standing nearby. The screen showed 3 Coalition warships moving toward them. They're hailing us, Atlas reported. Ignore it, Wilson ordered. Shields at maximum. Bring main engines to full power. Reed felt fear crawl up his spine. Those are Dread-class destroyers, the most powerful ships in the Coalition fleet. You can't fight them. Wilson smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Who said anything about fighting? Atlas, prepare for jump. Jump? Reed asked. You can't jump this close to a star. Human ships can, Wilson said simply. Outside, the Coalition vessels fired warning shots. Energy blasts flashed against the Vengeance's shields, doing no damage. Return fire? Atlas asked. Wilson considered for a moment. No, just a message. Let them know who they're dealing with. A beam of light, thin as a needle, shot from the Vengeance. It passed through the lead Coalition ship's shields like they weren't there and carved the human symbol for Vengeance into its hull. Not deep enough to cause serious damage, but unmistakable. Jump now, Wilson ordered. Space bent around the massive warship. Stars blurred. The Vengeance vanished in a flash of light, leaving the Coalition ships behind. The last human warship had returned to the stars, and the hunt had begun. Admiral Grant stared at the damage report in disbelief. His lead ship, the Invincible, had been marked like an animal tagged by a hunter. The human symbol carved into its hull wasn't deep enough to cause real damage, but the message was clear. We could have destroyed you, but chose not to. How did they jump so close to the star? His science officer asked, voice shaking. It should have torn their ship apart. Grant knew the answer, but didn't say it aloud. Human technology. Always one step ahead, even 50 years later. He opened a secure channel to Coalition High Command. This is Admiral Grant. The human warship Vengeance is active. I repeat, a human warship is active. Request immediate reinforcements and full war protocols. The response was immediate. Understood. All available fleets are being mobilized. Find that ship, Admiral. Find it and destroy it. Grant looked at the star chart where analysts had projected the Vengeance as possible jump destinations, a vast section of space with dozens of star systems. I will find you, human, he whispered. The Vengeance dropped out of its jump deep in an asteroid field. The massive ship moved with surprising grace between the floating rocks, hiding its signature among the mineral-rich asteroids. On the bridge, Commander Wilson studied the star charts while Reed watched nervously. You can't possibly reach Haven, Reed said. The Coalition controls all space between here and the outer rim. Every major route is guarded. Wilson pointed to the map. Then we won't use major routes. The path you're showing crosses the burning wastes, Reed protested. No ship has ever survived that radiation field. Wilson smiled. No Coalition ship, you mean? Reed realized the human was enjoying this, being underestimated, doing the impossible. It made him understand why the Coalition had feared humans so much. Atlas's hologram appeared. Commander, I've detected a problem in engine section 4. Engineer Mick reports sabotage. Wilson's smile vanished. Show me. The screen changed to show the engine room, where Mick was frantically working on a damaged console. Nearby lay Officer Dren, unconscious. What happened? Wilson demanded. Your crew member attempted to overload our secondary coolant system, Atlas explained. Engineer Mick stopped him. The damage is minimal but will slow our jump capabilities. Wilson turned to Reed. Your people. Reed's antenna drooped. I didn't order this. No, Wilson agreed after studying Reed's face. You wouldn't sacrifice your ship and crew so foolishly. Take me to the engine room. When they arrived, Mick was still working on repairs. Dren had been secured to a wall panel with restraints. He said we couldn't let the ship reach Haven, Mick explained nervously. That humans would destroy the Coalition if they returned. Wilson knelt beside the damage. You stopped him. Why? Mick's 3 fingers twisted together anxiously. This technology, it's amazing. We could learn from it. Destroying it would be wrong. Wilson studied the small alien engineer. Curiosity, the one trait humans share with most intelligent species. He stood up. Thank you for protecting my ship. You'll help with repairs. What about him? Reed asked, nodding toward the unconscious Dren. Confined to quarters under guard, Wilson ordered. I don't kill prisoners, Captain Reed. Another thing your Coalition got wrong about us. As they worked on repairs, Wilson explained more about the war, how the Coalition had feared human innovation and adaptability, how they had struck first, not to conquer but to exterminate. We were decades behind your technology when we met, Wilson said as he helped Mick rewire a panel. But we learned too quickly. Within 10 years, we had caught up. In 20, we were pulling ahead in some areas, so the Coalition attacked. Preemptive genocide, Reed said quietly. Wilson nodded. Billions dead in the first strikes. We never saw it coming. Mick looked up from his work. But some survived. At Haven? Yes, our best minds, our most advanced research. We scattered them while the rest of us fought a losing war. Wilson's eyes grew distant. The Vengeance was our last major warship, a decoy and a messenger in one. The ship shuddered suddenly. Alarms blared. Atlas, report, Wilson commanded. Coalition scout vessels detected. They've launched missiles. The Vengeance erupted from the asteroid field, its massive engines glowing bright. 5 small Coalition ships pursued, firing continuously. On the bridge, Wilson took command. Evasive pattern Delta, minimal shields. Let them think they're hurting us. Reed watched in confusion. Why not use full shields? Because I want them to call for backup, Wilson explained. I want them to think we're damaged. The Vengeance shuddered again as a missile struck its rear section. Now power to forward shields. Bring us around, Wilson ordered. Show them our teeth. The massive human warship swung around with impossible speed for its size. Its front section glowed as weapon ports opened, targeting their engines only, Atlas reported, ready to fire. Execute, Wilson said calmly. Beams of energy lanced out, striking each Coalition ship precisely where their engines connected to their hulls. The scouts drifted powerless but intact. They sent a distress signal, Atlas reported. Large Coalition force responding. Wilson smiled. Good. Set course for the burning wastes. Full speed. Reed's antenna stood straight up in alarm. You're insane. You're heading right for the largest Coalition fleet station. Exactly where they won't expect us to go, Wilson replied. The best way past a blockade is through it. 6 hours later, the Vengeance approached the outer edge of the Coalition's defensive line. Ahead lay the burning wastes, a massive radiation field created by three colliding neutron stars centuries ago. On the bridge, the screen showed dozens of coalition warships moving to intercept. Their flagship is hailing us, Atlas reported. Put it through, Wilson ordered. Admiral Grant's scaled face appeared on screen. Human vessel, this is Admiral Grant of the Coalition Third Fleet. Your situation is hopeless. Surrender now. Wilson leaned forward. This is Commander Wilson of the Earthship Vengeance. We will not surrender. You are outnumbered 30-1, Grant said. No ship can outrun this blockade. We don't need to outrun your blockade, Wilson replied. We just need to go through it. He gestured to cut the communication. Atlas, activate the shield bubble. All power to forward sections. The Vengeance's front began to glow bright blue. The energy spread backward, covering the entire ship in a bubble of light. What is that? Reed's eyes were wide. Radiation shield, Wilson explained, designed specifically for the burning wastes. Reed understood suddenly. You're going to fly straight through the radiation field. No coalition ship has ever. We're not a coalition ship, Wilson said as the Vengeance accelerated toward the deadly barrier between stars. Too big, too fast, too deadly. Remember? Behind them, the coalition fleet scrambled to pursue, but none dared follow where the human warship was heading. The Vengeance plunged into the swirling radiation of the burning wastes, its shields glowing bright against the deadly energies that had claimed thousands of ships before it. The gauntlet had begun. The burning wastes lived up to their name. Outside the Vengeance's shields, space itself seemed to burn with angry red and purple energies. Radiation levels were high enough to kill any unprotected living thing in seconds. On the bridge, Reed watched in amazement as the massive human ship pushed deeper into the deadly zone. The shields glowed bright blue, holding back the lethal radiation. How much farther? He asked. Wilson studied the navigation display. Another 8 hours at current speed. The wastes are over 3 light-years across. No coalition ship has ever mapped this region, Reed said. How do you know where to go? We mapped it, Wilson replied. 50 years ago, before the war ended. The Vengeance isn't the first human ship to pass through here. Reed's antenna twitched in surprise. You mean Haven is on the other side, hidden where your people would never look? The ship suddenly rocked violently. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Atlas, report, Wilson commanded. Radiation surge, the AI responded. Shield strength at 82% and falling. We also have a new problem. The main screen changed to show 5 coalition ships entering the wastes behind them. Unlike the rest of the fleet, these vessels had special shields that glowed green against the radiation. Impossible, Reed whispered. Coalition ships can't survive the wastes. It seems Admiral Grant has some special ships we didn't know about, Wilson said grimly. Atlas, increase power to rear shields. Prepare countermeasures. The screen showed the pursuing ships gaining on them. Their weapons were charging. They're not trying to capture us anymore, Wilson noted. They're here to destroy us at any cost. Why? Mick asked. The engineer had proven useful enough to earn a place on the bridge. Why risk those ships just to stop one vessel? Wilson turned to Reed. Captain, care to explain why the coalition is so afraid of us reaching Haven? Reed's 3-fingered hands tightened on the console. I don't know. I'm just a patrol captain. But you've heard rumors, Wilson pressed, about why the war really started. Reed hesitated, then nodded slowly. There were stories about human technology, things that seemed impossible. Like what? Mind transfer, artificial intelligence that could think like living beings, weapons that could destroy stars. Reed's voice dropped. Some said humans were becoming something more than organic. Wilson smiled grimly. And that scared the coalition to death. Another blast rocked the ship. The pursuing vessels were firing now, their weapons surprisingly effective even through the radiation. Shield strength at 64%, Atlas reported. They're using focused antimatter charges. Our shields weren't designed for this type of weapon. Wilson's face hardened. Time for Plan B. Reduce power to all non-essential systems. Transfer energy to the core. Commander, Atlas said, activating the core this early will reveal. I know what it will reveal, Wilson cut in. Do it anyway. Throughout the massive ship, lights dimmed, systems shut down. The hum of the engines quieted. What's happening? Reed asked. You're about to learn why this ship is called Too Big, Wilson answered. At the center of the Vengeance, deep within its armored hull, something began to awaken. A different kind of power, unlike the engines or weapon systems. It pulsed like a heartbeat, growing stronger with each beat. On the bridge, a new hologram appeared, a three-dimensional map of the ship. At its center, a bright light grew. The Vengeance was never just a warship, Wilson explained as the pursuing coalition vessels closed in. It's a carrier. The light at the center of the hologram expanded, revealing a smaller vessel contained within the massive hull of the Vengeance. A ship within a ship, Reed whispered in awe. Not just any ship, Wilson said. The fastest,